Pixelheart recently sent over some games for me to try for the Sega Dreamcast. Since I have never played these before, I was actually pretty excited to get them. It was a mix of shoot-'em-ups, running guns, platformers, and even a fighting game. The Dreamcast Indie scene is alive and well, and most of these games are actually ports from the PC and can be found at places like Steam if you'd rather get them there. In this episode, we are going to take a look at Rocketron, Cetazius Next, Tough Guy, Wolf Flame, Supercharged Robot Vulkaiser, and Alice Sisters. That's 6 physical indie releases for your Sega Dreamcast. We are gonna start with Rocketron, a side-scrolling run-and gun that has a number of elements from Metroid sewn into its very decent gameplay. Here you will explore large environments, collect weapons, power-ups, and face down massive enemies that fill the entire screen. You have a rocket pack that can boost you around and aid in your jumping, adding quite a bit of maneuverability to your cyber warrior. As you progress, you gain the ability to boost longer, move faster, attack with more devastating weapons, and soon will face much more potent competition from your enemies. It kinda puts you in mind of something Factor 5 would have done for the Dreamcast. Most of the sprites are small, but the action stays fairly intense, and there are lots of cool scaling and rotation effects throughout. I really like the Metroid-style progression and the non-linear feel to the world. There are save pods to keep your game going, and lots of backtracking and secrets to find. The story unfolds as you find more of your comrades in the field, who also tend to give you items to help you out. There wasn't really anything like this on the Dreamcast during its lifetime, so it's quite welcome even in this modest two-dimensional form. I'm only about a quarter of the way through it, but so far I'm really enjoying it. It's my favorite of the group in this episode, and I don't think I'm going to have any issues at all seeing it to the end. This was originally developed by Astroport before it was brought to the Dreamcast by JoshProd Games. I have no clue how to pronounce the next one, but we are going to call it Cetazius Next. A horizontal shoot-'em-up that is peppered with inspiration from the likes of Darius, Gradius, and a number of Genesis offerings from the genre. It starts out with a pretty impressive array of options for your weapons, which can be powered up as you play. From there, you are in pretty familiar territory as you blast your way through hordes of enemies and huge boss battles. The visuals are nice for the indie level, with lots of rotation effects and lots of transparencies. Astroport did the original game here as well, which is quite old now. This Dreamcast release actually touches up a lot of the enemies and effects, hence the next in its title, but it also carries the original game if you're interested. If 16-bit shooters were your jam, I think you're gonna like this one quite a bit. I was pretty excited to play Tough Guy because I haven't played a new two-dimensional fighter on a Dreamcast in a very long time. It was originally developed by Panda Entertainment and clearly takes inspiration from the games from Capcom and SNK in the 1990s. But this one is my least favorite among the group we'll cover today. I really did not enjoy the massive hitboxes, the way the computer regains life, nor the way you have to stay aggressive pretty much all the time to succeed. In essence, it's a button masher by design. To get anywhere, you absolutely must stay on the AI and never let up, because if you do, they will just recharge their health constantly. This is a ridiculous feature and makes every fighter feel as though you're playing Gil from Street Fighter 3 in every damn round. No doubt this will have some appeal to those that have friends and family members around to enjoy the multiplayer, but I found the single player gets old pretty quickly in this one. This is compounded by the fact there is copious amounts of slowdown to deal with. With the Dreamcast being such a powerhouse in the fight genre, this is definitely low on the totem pole, even for an indie release. For what it's worth, the visuals have a nice early 90s aesthetic, some of the animation is very nice, and the fighters are quite wacky, right down to the German dude that throws questionable projectiles.
Ready, go!
Not me! Not me! Not me! Not me! Not me!
Holy heck is Wolfflame difficult. This is a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up that takes a number of cues from Raiden and many of the Toa Plan offerings. But even on easy, this wrecked me on the first stage multiple times. Jack that difficulty up and you'll be lucky to survive more than a few seconds. This is for the hardcore shooter fans and nothing less. As a newcomer, I was impressed with the scaling effects, massive explosions, cool music, and huge enemies, but I still need a lot of practice to see the later levels. I think that fans of the genre that have the will to learn the patterns and maximize the weapons will love it, but if you are the type to crumble under extreme challenge, you'll want to look elsewhere for your Dreamcast Indie kicks. I will say this, even though I was beaten down pretty bad in my time with it so far, I definitely want more. There is a solid game under the difficulty barrier, and I'd love to see the later game. Check it out if you love challenging shooters. Aside from having a really cool name, Supercharged robot Vulkaiser also conjures up similar feelings for properties like Ultraman and Mazinger Z. Here you pilot a giant robot with various abilities that account for its weapon system. Just like the old Japanese TV shows, there is a short cinematic whenever you combine with a new component and weapon system. Not only does this change your basic attack, but it also changes your charge weapon as well. I was really happy with the constant barrage of enemies in this one. The screen is absolutely flooded with action and it hardly ever lets up. This may lead you to believe that it's crazy hard like Wolfflame, and while it's true there's no continues, you have the tools you need to succeed. The visuals are fairly simple and remind you of a Super Nintendo game with its bright colors and very Japanese art design. This is another Astroport developed title that JoshProd Games moved over, and I gotta say it's pretty nice for an indie release. If you enjoy the old school Japanese robot designs, this is definitely a shooter worth looking into. Of all the games that Pixelheart sent me, I thought for sure Alice Sisters would be my favorite. The two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer was always the type of game I gravitated towards when I was younger, but I found this one rather droll in its execution. The basic concept here is that it's a puzzle platformer, where you have control over a pair of sisters with different abilities. One has the ability to shoot enemies and destroy blocks, while the other can change her size with mushrooms. This makes navigating stages a game of finding keys, operating switches, opening doors, breaking blocks, and various other obstacle-based challenges that must be figured out using your abilities. Think of this as a mix of Super Mario and the Lost Vikings. The problem is the action is so slow and simple that I lost interest in it pretty quickly. I was also not a fan of the tiny sprites and heavy jump mechanics that make it feel very cumbersome. I mean, even the simplest of platforming can be really frustrating. But this game was definitely targeted at a much younger crowd, especially the two-player co-op that would be perfect for a parent and child. In single player, you switch between the sisters on the fly, but the two-player mode allows for simultaneous play. So while this one isn't going to be for many of you, I think those looking for an easy to get into co-op experience may enjoy it quite a bit. It was originally made by Orion Soft and brought to the Dreamcast by JoshProd Games as a sequel to Alice's Mom's Rescue. While the Dreamcast Indie scene mostly consists of simple two-dimensional games, I am still glad to see new releases. Sometimes you get a fun little game that is worth a few hours of your time to see it through. You're not going to get anything nearing the excellence of the original library, of course, but that doesn't mean you still can't find fun and great additions to your library. I'm a bit late to the party as many of these were released last year, but they are still available. You can pick them up at places like Amazon and Pixelheart's website, and I'll throw a few links in the description. For those of you interested, all these games support VGA output and saving to a memory card. They are also region-free and come in various case styles that resemble the region you prefer. Finally, if you like the idea of owning physical indie games for old consoles, check out Pixelheart's other offerings available for systems like the Sega Genesis and the Nintendo Game Boy. They even do games for the Neo Geo and Neo Geo CD. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.